you try not, got to be careful with that word try though. I was going to say you try not to do that mistake again. I don't like the word try simply because you're you're suggesting that it could happen again. Um, and that's okay. I prefer sort of saying, I am dedicated to be self-aware enough to make sure it's not going to happen again. Because, for example, you don't try to eat a hot fudge sundae. You know what I mean? Like, there's no trying in that. Like, you just eat it. Like, it's because you are passionate about eating that hot fudge sundae. You are enjoying that hot fudge sundae, every moment of it. And you are completely focused on that hot fudge sundae because it's very meaningful for you. Okay? That's if you love chocolate and vanilla ice cream. And then whoever doesn't love those two things, I don't know. I don't know if I can be your friend. Hi, my name is Luella Yonk. I'm a psychotherapist and coach. And if you're interested in how your lifestyle is affecting your mental health, then you're at the right place. On this show, I interview various guests from across the miles and share how their lifestyle choices affects their sense of self, their wealth, and most importantly, their health. Enjoy the show. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for joining me today. This is going to be a solo episode. I do a solo episode every 3 or 4 episodes after having guests and experts on my podcast. I mean, I love those intimate conversations, and I absolutely love getting information from these wonderful guests. But once in a while, I just think, I better get on here and sort of do my own little spiel, mostly about what I'm seeing mainly in my therapy room these days. Um, but it's not to say that the topic I'm speaking about today, which is self-love and worthiness, um, also going to be throwing some shame and guilt into this mixture today, but like that's nothing new. It is basically the primary reason why people enter therapy or people are anxious or depressed. They're caught up in some sort of like cycle of unworthiness and not loving themselves. It's really what was the primary focus of Marissa Peer's RTT therapy, rapid transformational therapy. That's the type of hypnotherapy that I was trained by her back in 2017. Um, I don't advertise that very much, actually, that I'm an RTT therapist. I don't do a whole lot of hypnotherapy anymore. If people request it, I do it, because it's not to say that it can be extremely transforming. Um, I think it's really based on what you're struggling with, and we can have that conversation if that's something you're interested in. But it is for someone who, yeah, either wants to break an addiction, um, but even with all those, like whatever you're presenting with, whatever issue you're presenting with, if you peel back the layers, it always comes back to self-love. As cheesy as that sounds, it is. You're simply not loving yourself enough. Um, even when you think of obesity or health issues, and not, allowing enough self-care, exercise, or or sleep or nutrition. Really, it boils down to you don't love yourself enough to take care of yourself, and therefore you participate in, uh, you know, addictive behaviors and even becoming a workaholic, right? You are not granting yourself enough time, self-care, etc. Um, so there's the hypnotherapy part of it, but there's also, I want to remind you of, I still run this 2-day intensive where we do 12 hours of therapy in a very, very short time. So, whereas hypnotherapy is about 2 hour session, this one is, it incorporates a little bit more reflection time in there, and it is intense. But you know what? If 2 days is too much for you, then we spread it out to, it can be 3 or 4 days. It can be done online. It can be done in person. And that's also for the person who, doesn't like the idea of attending therapy, weekly for 12 weeks or every second week for 24 weeks. So yeah, there's a few options out there, and I think I'd definitely be one of those. It's sort of because if someone tells me, no, it would be good for you to continue working on this because of XYZ, and I knew I had to drive or make room, for the next 24 weeks. It might be something I don't want to do. It really all depends on the person. So there's lots of options, and I'm totally open to customizing what's best for you because everyone is so different in terms of how they want to educate themselves or learn. Yeah. So with that, I thought I would speak about three of my past clients that I had this week. And like I said, all different issues, but it all comes back to this challenging thought of, why I do not love myself enough. Why am I so hard on myself? And that's really what it is. So I'm going to be speaking about one client who's struggling to attain her license after losing it as a nurse due to crippling anxiety. Another client who runs a very successful business as a woman and running into burnout, you could say. And another fellow who recently has seen me for marital counseling um, because of having multiple affairs over the course of a few years. And as it always does, it was revealed a couple weeks ago to, his partner. It always comes out. So anybody who's having an affair right now and you think you're going to get away with it, no one will ever find out. Um, you're delusional. Let's put it that way. All right. So let's start with my one client who has lost her license as a nurse, and she is working at getting it back and dedicating herself, for that purpose, which I highly admire. It's sort of like, I'm working on this. Like, I mean, I let it get this bad. So, I mean, and we don't want that to happen, right? We don't want it to get to the point where, a marriage is breaking up, a job is lost, or like you hit burnout. And what I mean by that is sort of like the adrenal glands are just kind of wiped out, and you have no motivation to even get out of bed in the morning anymore. Someone who was once a high functioning, um, let's say executive, sort of optimistic, positive person, bubbly, has now become, a shell of a person sort of thing. It's like, are you there? Are you home? Um, where's the person I used to know? Where's that spark? Where's that glitter in your eyes? Like we don't want that to get there. And it's it happens so slowly, for most people. It's just so it leaks in so slowly, drip by drip, day by day, until all of a sudden it's there. So it's really important to pay attention to, um, let's say, how you see your personality change. Maybe you were once a very funny, humorous person, or like I said, very optimistic normally, and now you've changed that. You're yelling at your kids more, you're kicking your dog more, you're just becoming miserable, pretty much. You're blaming everybody around you. Um, yeah, if you see yourself kind of, displaying those new personality characteristics, then it's time to do something about it. So, example one, someone who is has struggled with anxiety all of her life. Um, and I'm also going to mention that, um, she is a person of faith and um, has a solid relationship with God, and feels well. It has made her more of a people pleaser because she has no self care. Um, she doesn't uphold her own personal boundaries, like in terms of what she needs, because she overdoes it for everybody else. Um, and I'm going to say a little bit of the Christianity sort of played a role in that, because yeah, I mean, it's sort of like she's overextended herself, and I think it's a little bit of guilt, um, you know, kind of weaved into that. Like if I don't do more for other people, then I feel guilty because I'm not worthy, of God's love, of Jesus's love. Um, and you really have to watch that because you must remind yourself, if you're a person of Christian faith, that you are a child of God, right? And God does not want you to suffer. He wants you to take care of yourself. He wants you to be happy, be full of joy. So, and we have to remind ourselves, okay, we are not God. We cannot do 1,000 things for everybody else and not do anything for ourselves. And we also, because we're humans, make mistakes. I think mistakes are necessary because with each mistake you make, you learn something and you are self aware now. And therefore, you will not do, you try not, got to be careful with that word try, though. I was going to say you try not to do that mistake again. I don't like the word try simply because you're you're suggesting that it could happen again, um, and that's okay. I prefer sort of saying, I am dedicated to be self-aware enough to make sure it's not going to happen again. Because, for example, you don't try to eat a hot fudge sundae. You know what I mean? Like there's no trying in that. Like you just eat it. Like it's because you are passionate about eating that hot fudge sundae. You are enjoying that hot fudge sundae, every moment of it, and you are completely focused on that hot fudge sundae because it it's very meaningful for you. Okay? That's if you love chocolate and vanilla ice cream, and then whoever doesn't love those two things, I don't know. I don't know if I can be your friend. But so do you see the difference? Like you got to watch when you use that word try. It's like you decide you're going to educate yourself, find out the information you need to find out in order to not make that mistake again. And I'm really highlighting this because the it was the type of anxiety that she was not able to do her job. Like when you think of it, when you're trained as a nurse, you're trained in specific skills. The college wants you to they set you off, like it's like the mother bird, you know, like open up your wings and off you go. You are ready. And you have these skills. You have to remind yourself you have these skills. So when you walk into a patient's room and you're required to do XYZ for the patient, you have to constantly remind yourself, I'm trained in this. And this is going to become second nature to me. The more I do this procedure, the more confident I will become. That is how confidence is built. You do a skill over and over and over again in order to become confident. You cannot let, these other thoughts infiltrate your mind of, but what if, this happens? And what if that happens? And what if I forget the next step? What if? In other words, that's like, I mean, that's just the anxious thoughts overcoming the accurate thoughts being, the logical thoughts. No, I'm trained in this. This is a skill I've been trained in. Adding on to that, though, if I would make a mistake, this is something that, I neglected to see before, and now I have learned. And I mean, that's why we're supervised, right? When we first become clinicians, we're supervised in order, like when we do make a mistake, someone will catch that for us. And that helps us not to make the mistake again. So, I mean, I needed to emphasize that to her that, you have been trained in this. You have the knowledge. It's inside you. You just really need to work at not letting those other thoughts infiltrate your mind and take over the logic. So we worked on that, that combined with her need to people please all the time. So it is all related to loving herself enough, because had she provided herself, enough time, like even sleep, like, I mean, it's all these lifestyle factors that were, that I needed to remind her about, just simple things like, yeah, like, I mean, just making sure that you get the 7 hours a night, and like respecting yourself enough to give yourself enough time to eat nutritious meals, not in front of a screen, to concentrate and be mindful of the food you're eating. And I mean, if you are very you know, like Christian based or whatever, remind yourself, I mean, all of this, the whole foods that you're eating are a creation of God. And, it's not very Christian like, you could think, to be like woofing down, I don't know, like something that God has created and just eating it mindlessly without gratitude, without, enjoying each morsel of that whole food that was made in the hands of God. Like, so, I mean, it's kind of strange how, someone can call themselves Christian and think that it's all related to reading scripture, um, or doing simply, some more kind acts for other people when there's so many other things about your lifestyle that you're not leading a Christian life. You know, is like, I mean, if you're shortchanging yourself of sleep, then I don't think it's a surprise to anybody to know that you're going to wake up on the wrong side of the bed. And, this is going to compound night after night after night. And think of the last time that you were short of sleep. You're not a happy person. You're not a happy person. You're short with people. You do poor work. That's when you do make mistakes at work. That's when you start hating your job. So, um, once you start taking care of yourself, ensuring that you're eating proper foods that nourishes your mind, that boost your brain power so that you do remember, and you can easily um yeah, like retrieve all the important steps that you need in order to do this procedure. That's why we eat good food. That's why we get enough sleep. That's why we exercise, so our blood is circulating and feeding our brain, and giving us, again, getting out in nature as much as you can, reminding yourself that this is all a creation of God. I'm not I mean, I was raised Catholic. I'm not trying to make this episode all about God, but I'm just saying that she was someone of strong faith, and I needed to constantly remind her that this is, you're not, this is not something that God would approve of, what you're doing right now. Um, Sacrificing your life for others, and losing your license. I mean, it's not something that God would approve of. So that's when you've tipped it too far, you know? Um, so yeah, that's the number one um case that I can think of right now. Okay, so the second case is, I mentioned too, another woman running her business, a very, you know, successful business. It's an amazing business. Um, but in her case, she was a jack of all trades and realizing slowly a master of none. Um, and I'm going to say this is very common, more common for women than men who are running a business, because there's this other part of a woman who also is the nurturer and the caregiver of her family, right? So there's a whole lot of guilt and shame messed up with this scenario as well, because although she's very passionate about her work, if she's not at work, she's worrying about, or not spending enough time with her partner or her children, or baking the cupcakes for um you know the whatever performance, like whatever, the school performance, the school class, whatever it is. And yeah, so burning both ends of the candle is how I speak about that. So she's getting very close to burnout, and then you just make more mistakes at work. So it's again, I had to remind her about, you know, we all have strengths as like there's something about you that's so unique to you and that's wonderful about you and no one else has that. There's like when she spoke about herself, there's so many things that I look at her and I'm just like, oh my God, I wish I was more like that. It's sort of like you have parts about you that you make look like you make it look so easy when for others it's not easy at all. In fact, it's very, very difficult because they were not conditioned to be that way, um, over the years. And something that you just whip out so easily is so difficult for somebody else. So, you know, I mean, there's something else to this too. Like she had another person in her company that, like, I don't know, you could say like slightly manipulative in terms of pointing out all the things that she can't do well and wanting her to do it better sort of thing. But the fact is we can't be masters at all things. We cannot. And that's in fact why I think God had this whole idea about relationships. Like, I mean, you're really good at these few things and your partner is really good at these other things. And together, combined, putting the two pieces together, you make a whole circle. Like you are now complete in the fact that you help each other out because what's so easy to one person is so difficult for the other. So rather than trying to find someone like you all the time, if we're talking about a romantic relationship, you should be finding someone who's very different than you, but having the same core values. Um, I mean, to me, that's what's really important. Now, whether that's, the core values of commitment, honesty, hardworking ethic, you know, raising children, parenting, whatever that might be, that is important. Um, saying a hard no to affairs or hard no to drugs in the home, addictions, or um, late night partying or whatever. Like, I mean, there's just some things that you have personal boundaries around. That's your values, and you can't mess with that. Like, that's not like it's not like, oh yeah, okay, I won't get into that, but like, so that was her issue that she finally realized that I can't do it all. Like I actually can't do it all. And I am going to um relieve some of these duties to other people on my team and I'm okay with not doing it all. And I I think like with this sort of realization that she's having right now, things are going to massively change for her because I mean, she's very good at what she does. Um Extremely hardworking individual and just sort of like, you know what? This whole idea of taking care of myself, I kind of like that idea. You know what? Like I used to read tons of books and I can't remember the last time I picked up a book. And to give myself permission to actually read a book, even if it's a half hour a day, maybe I'll put my device away in the evening, shut my phone off at 6 p.m. Um, and give myself some time for a bath, uh or yeah, that 15 minutes of reading, half hour of reading, or I might make my Sunday afternoons open to reading now, or I might start my weekends off with you know actually getting up earlier and having an hour alone reading my book. Like, you decide wherever you're going to incorporate that. um but there's so many acts of self-love that people don't think of, like if you're creative at all, like whether that's writing, whether that's in drawing, whether that's in the kitchen. So you love the idea of food prep, so then do the food prep, do the time for the food prep. You're going to feel so much better in so many different ways. But like it's y- y- you know if you're listening to this and you're kind of like, how am I not giving myself more love? And how can I start incorporating that? I want that to be your homework after the episode, is sort of like, what were the things that I really did enjoy when I had quote unquote more time? And try, see, I caught myself. You're not going to try. You are going to write down, where can I carve in another 15 minutes a day for this, 20 minutes a day? Um, let's say 20 minutes. I don't know. I like the idea of 20 minutes, that's, and just keep on expanding that. And then, maybe you figure out another 20 minutes a day, and maybe, another 20 minutes a day. And now you got an hour more in your day that you carved out. And it's actually quite easy, because you're going to end up dropping things that are not serving you at all, you know? And I also spoke to my other client about, like, I mean, habit stacking. Um, that's all from the book Atomic Habits. If you haven't read it, a lot of people have, but it's just sort of like, if I'm somebody that never really thought about supplementing my diet before, maybe I'm going to, you know, take 20 minutes of my day. Like, I've actually purchased just this kitchen timer. I have it on my desk right now, and I love it because I'm somebody who's not great at the concept of time. And so I might set the timer for 25 minutes, um, because there's so many reasons I use it, but like it just, like a bit of it, it's also self-awareness. Like, because we can get addicted to certain things. I'm not very addicted to the phone at all, but you might find myself like, oh, I'll just open up, I want to do this recipe tonight. Let me just go on one of my favorite websites and look up this recipe. Oh, she posted a new recipe. Oh, and it's like all of a sudden it's 20 minutes out of my super busy morning that I just, you know, not that it's not interesting, but it's not what I sat down here to do today. Let me do that another time. So I think you could drop what I'm saying. I think you can drop a lot of things, and then think about how I can maybe incorporate one thing with another. That's what I meant about, getting some sort of rich routine going or schedule going. I'm going to do my 20-minute walk um, right after dinner, rather than scrolling on my phone, checking like the sports scores or like my group chat with my friends. Or no, I'm going to wait for that a little bit later on tonight. And I will do that when, I'm in the grocery store in a lineup or something like that. Right. Or no, you know what? I have, an upcoming, um, physical, and my doctor's normally a good 30 minutes late. Let me schedule that in then. Like, it's scheduling is super important, because you're going to become great with your time. And the only reason I'm saying this is that that's going to open up a lot of self-care time. that you keep on telling yourself, I don't have time for this. And that's BS. You do have time for it. You just need to clean up your schedule. So, the last one I want to speak about is this one man, a successful man, a man whose job requires, and I say successful in the area of his career, but his job requires, a good, like it's not a 9 to 5 job. It requires more than that. So in other words, when he got home at the end of the day, um, he was extremely tired and kind of thought, you know what, like I'm bringing in a fairly good income here for our family. My wife has given up her career because you know what, it probably doesn't make it again, this is sometimes logic is good, sometimes logic is not good at all. The logic that was used here was, you know what, she earns about 30,000 a year. I earn about 250,000 a year. It makes sense for you, honey, to stay home and raise the children. Um, and I'll just keep pounding it at the career. And you know what? Like, I mean, as a new mom, I would sign up for that too. I'd be like, yeah, do I really like I want to raise my children? It sounds good. But but I'm just saying, you know what? If you're that stay-at-home mom and you love it, great. But you won't know that until you pop out child number one and you could realize, I mean, you could be like, oh my God, this is what I'm meant to do. There's nothing more that I love. The flip side of that is, oh my God, this is insane. This is insanely hard. Um, I I need adult interaction or I'm going to go completely insane. We don't know. So like this whole like discussion of, who's going to do what when we have children is pretty much a non-versation. Like you might as well not really have it. It's better to say, you know, I'm going to hang on to my career until, the maternity leave is over. And then I'm going to decide, right? Because do not kiss your career away until you 100% think that you are going to be the stay-at-home mom. Because I know a lot of women that are very bubbly socially, really love social interaction. Um, and they are meant to be with other people. Like, I mean, that is their skill. And, you can do both. You can do part-time, you can go full-time back into work after 6 months at home with the baby. If it's not your thing, you know, do not force that. Anyway, I'm kind of, digressing here from the topic of the marital affair, but like, in other words, they had sort of established that. And he was raised as, in the traditional, um, you know, probably like he was like born in the 70s, very traditional parents, where mom stayed home and dad worked. And so kind of thought like, why wouldn't this setup work, in our relationship? But it didn't. And I'm just saying that's where sort of I mean, I didn't get into deeply with that on that part, but like he mentioned that they've had been having relational issues for some time before the affairs happened. Um, so chances are I think it had to do with a lot of that because they had 4 children. That's a lot of kids nowadays. I think what is it normally like one and a half or 2 children home homes. 4 is what we would call a large family right now. So very challenging. So, in other words, no, you can't come home and kick back, even if you did have a hard day, even if you did have a stressful day, because guess what? So did mom. Like, so did mom. So you need to share the roles uh of the care for the children, the home, the cooking, the cleaning, the blah blah blah. I mean, most of these, if you're fortunate enough to have a nanny, wonderful, but it could still get very, very dicey because, let's say the nanny, like if one partner looks at the other partner and says, why is the nanny doing, the job that you should be doing? Like resentment still builds up. Sometimes it's not, you got to watch it. It's not as easy as just hiring somebody for this, because if you're not communicating your grievances, or you have like lost expectations about what that partner, like what you signed up for with this partner, and you're not expressing that in the moment, that's where it gets really, really ugly. So, okay, fast forward, this guy um has three different affairs over the course of about 3 years or so. And well, what are you going to say? I mean, the affairs came out, and it's that's why he landed in my office, right? That's why I'm going to be seeing them for couple counseling, because I guess my message here to you, because I'm talking about self-love, and I was going to like zone in on him in terms of self-love, and you might be going, what? Like, I mean, you know, I think this guy is loving himself too much. He seems to have a lot of time for these women, but not enough time for his family. No, it's not that. It's it's more of he had this um he didn't have confidence as a young man. He did not have the confidence, um the innate knowing that he was worthy of love, the 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 love that like a child would normally have for themselves. I'm quite sure he was born with it, but somehow he lost it. Who knows? It could be so many different reasons. It could have been bullying. It could have been body image. It could have been, who knows? Who knows? We didn't get into the details of that, but I know right from the beginning that it is that, because once he, got into the workforce, and has a successful career now, that's when he started to get, I think, more attention brought to him. And that's when his ego started to get away with him. And he saw that he was also getting attention from other women. And rather than saying, no, sorry, I'm a committed man, um, he made mistakes. And it, my purpose of telling you this story, though, is that he's looking for validation externally rather than having it internally with himself. The dialogue with himself that, I am good enough when I was 9, when I was 19, and now when I'm however old I am in this successful career. You know, nothing about me has changed. I've always been good enough to attract women. I've always had what it takes to attract women. I don't need a career to attract women and feel needed, feel desired, feel it all has to do with his poor confidence and worthiness. And, I think we can all probably relate to, you know, our ego getting boosted when we climb up the ladder in our careers or have these credentials now that we didn't have before. But none of that is really important in terms of who we, you know, who we are at our core. Like the reason why we're attractive is because, as I mentioned before, specific personality traits that no one else has but you, and are very favorable personal characteristic traits, certain values that you maintain and uphold. you know that's what makes you attractive. Because you got to realize that your body is a depreciating asset. Like, you are not, I'm sorry. Like, I mean, I know there's a lots of longevity hacks out there, and my husband teases me a lot, saying, go ahead, you eat that, and live to 100. I'm going to just be over here enjoying my meal and, you know, die earlier than you, but that's okay. I don't do it for so that I can be a centenarian. I'm doing it so I can think well at 56, and I can be very, very active with my grandchildren, and I continue to travel, and I can continue to write, and I can continue to read, and I can continue to retain information. And that's why I do it. It has nothing to do with living longer. It's living better. That's why I do it. And so it has, like, again, I'm bringing this back to self-love and having certain boundaries and values for yourself. Um, so that's what it is for him. I mean, um, because had he loved himself enough, he would have reminded himself, like, this is who I am as a person. These are my values. These are my morals. These are my standards for myself. I am a man of commitment. I am a man of loyalty. I am a man of XYZ. Where did that go? I don't know. But we need to get that back. So I'm going to give you some tips if you have had an affair and you're trying to regain the love of your partner, regain the trust of your partner, is to not come home and tell your partner, I'm going to try better now. No, no, no. Remember this word, try. There is no trying. You know, and she also does not want you um, moping around the house, telling yourself what an asshole you are, what a jerk you are, and and how remorseful you are. No, she doesn't want that. She doesn't want a sack of low energy, moping around the house, feeling sorry for yourself because you made a mistake, multiple mistakes, big mistakes. She wants somebody that's going to walk in the door at the end of the workday, probably throw the phone on the kitchen counter and say, here's my phone, look through it. Um, there's no hidden agendas anymore. Um, open up the bank accounts, open up everything, total reveal. Here I am, the raw part of me. And, but with your shoulders back and your chin up and saying, this is me. This was me like a week ago 3 months ago, 10 years ago, but this is me today. And as much as people say, people don't change. BS, people do change. They just have to decide they're going to change. They just have to commit to change because that's self-growth, self-love, self-worthiness is I'm committed to continuing to grow as a person, to be a better person every day. It doesn't mean I'm not going to make mistakes, but I'm not going to put myself in that um I'm not going to risk making that mistake. In other words, if I'm approached by a woman in the office, um, with some sort of flirtatious personality, it's going to be like I'm bolting the other way and telling the woman like I'm a committed man. I'm not available for this. I have personal boundaries. I have values. I have standards for myself. So I'm not available for this. This is a non-option for me. Like that is confidence, you know. There's no more excuses for that. There's no more quote unquote mistakes. I thought she was just being nice. Oh my God. Like, come on, really? No, like that's not gonna fly anymore. Um, that is what your wife is looking for right now. She needs you to get home, help with the kids, figure out plan B in terms of maybe her getting out of the home more, and getting her life back. And it's not about the money. It's not about the income, what she's going to bring in. It's bring in or not bring in. It's never been about the money. It's about contributing as a family, and her own self-love, her own personal boundaries, her own self-care. That's what needs to be done right now. So this whole idea of, you should stay home and take over more roles because your income is less than mine. I'm sorry, that just does not fly with me. And I'm not saying that she probably did agree with that in the beginning. She probably did. But as I said, people do change. And we don't know until we actually have kid one, two, three, four, five, six. Like we don't know how things are going to change in the family. Um, no one can predict the future. Like prediction is an illusion. So all you can do is sort of like minimalize your risk. In other words, don't give up your job. Um, it's just like, you know, I'm going to write this exam. Uh, I I'm going to try to do well, but it's not trying to do well. What you do is you study the material that was given to you and you minimize your risk. You put the necessary hours in to prepare for that test, and you drop the risk of doing poorly in that test. It's not rocket science. And the same is true for your relationships. It's not that it's not that complicated. So you uphold your personal boundaries, and you ensure that you're bringing joy into your life every single day. You take care of yourself. You love yourself in that way. And by doing that, it's like you're watering the plant, and you allow the plant to, stand up straight and be bright and colorful um and and add to the room. Like who wants to look at a dead plant in the corner? You want that plant to give carbon dioxide, to the room. You want that plant to um, give back, and you can't do that without nurturing yourself. It's the number one reason why people end up seeking therapy is they're not loving themselves enough. And if you're having difficulty doing that, it's probably mixed in with some sort of guilt and shame from the past. And it manifests in so many different ways. It manifests as addictions. It manifests as affairs. It manifests, having a problem with that word, manifests as, not being able to maintain a job, a career, and having an affair. I mean, it's really a lot of guilt and shame about who you're not, whatever, you had this warped expectation that you should be. You've been shooting on yourself way too long. So I hope that helps. Again, bring some of the therapy room into real life here. And yeah, reach out if you want any help with what's going on in your life. I'm still taking in clients, mainly online. I'm available, and I have a lot of great little tips and tricks, and yeah, it's just not that complicated. It's not that complicated in terms of finding, happiness in your life, bringing the joy back. And it's a lot that has to do with self-care. So everyone have a great week, and I will see you next week. Bye. Thanks once again for joining me on another great episode of I Think I Can podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe below so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And until next week, treat each day like it was your last, because each new day is a privilege that we shan't take for granted. Cheers and have a great week. Bye-bye.